Hey y'all, and welcome back to Dragon Con Filk Music Track and Dragon Con Goes Virtual. This is our first panel on Friday, and it is a rebroadcast of last night's live panel talk of What is Filk with Tom Smith, the Blibbering Humdingers, and Chris Saber from the Night Sabers. Before we get this rolling, just want to go ahead and put out that it is also Bandcamp Friday. So any of the folks that you see on the Filk track have band camps, and they get all of their proceeds today if you purchase from their band camp. Don't forget. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start up the recording.
Hi, everybody. My name's Chuck Parker. I'm the bass player for the Blibbering Humdingers. People also call me the world's okayest bassist. I've been called that guy in every band. It's a thing. Maybe you run into me at a con, on the internet, or you don't know me at all. It's fine. I'm just this guy. But Filk. The working definition of Filk that I use is the music of fandom. And there's probably just as many definitions as there are people in the community, so take my definition with a grain of salt. You know, it's the music of fandom. People singing songs about sci-fi, fantasy, fan experience, nerds, technology, geekery, whatever you geek out about. And whatever, also for whatever reason, a lot of cats, but that's okay too. I like cats. Style or genre is not important. It's all over the place, and that's a feature. It's not a bug. There's no wrong way to do Filk. But the question being asked here today is, what does Filk mean to me? And for me, more than anything, it's about the community. I've found my place, my tribe. I've built a chosen family with the people who make and enjoy this kind of music. I've made lifelong friends, and I really feel like I'm part of something. It's cool. So I started this at the ground floor. A decade or more ago, when I started going to cons, I wandered into a circle and I became a fan. Eventually, I started playing along. Then I joined a band or two or three, or yeah, it happens. It just happens. Eventually I started writing, and at this point now I'm released my own record, and I get to play my own shows at cons and everywhere else, and I've gotten a chance to meet some really great people and play all over the place. And it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for all the people in this wonderful community, all these creative types who opened up their world and encouraged me to open my mouth and add my piece to it. It's a wonderful thing. So yeah, for me, it's about the community more than anything. These artists who continue to this day to inspire and entertain me. And I hope if you explore things a bit and get into Filk as well, if you're not already, I hope you'll find the same thing. Thanks.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the first Dragon Con Goes Virtual Filk Music Track live feed. Joining me to answer the question, what's Filk, is Scott and Kirsten, the Blibbering Humdingers, Tom Smith, and Chris Saber from the Night Sabers. Hey y'all, how are you doing?
Hey.
Hey,
Glad to be here.
Looks like we got a few
amazing.
already joining in. Well, that is the question of the night. What is Filk? Tom, you want to get us rolling?
I will be more than happy to. Filk is actually several things at once. The first thing it is a genre. It's effectively, well, let's see. Juanita Colson, our great grandmother of Filk, says it's anything we sing in Filk. If you want to be slightly more precise, it's the music of the community of science fiction and fantasy fandom. Okay, we've got so many people, and they will sing about anything. It's in a lot of ways, it's like fanfic and fan films and fan art, except that you can put art in front of somebody and they can look at it. You can put fic in front of somebody, they can look at it. You can roll a film in front of somebody, they gotta look at it. A song has to be performed. And the live performance element is kind of unique because of that. And as I say, we'll sing about anything, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be science fiction or fantasy related. There are a lot of songs about going to space, and in In regular time, there's songs about computers, there's songs about cats. Mark Gunn has entire albums about cats. The second thing that Filk is a description of what we do. If we do a parody of a song, we're said to Filk. Okay. For instance, Weird Al Yankovic's Yoda is a Filk of Lola. There, that's easy enough. I like to think. The third thing, and I think most important, is that Filk is a community. And once you're in, you're in. We try to accept everybody. We accept everybody specifically because of that performance element. Number one, it's somebody out there who is also making music like us and also sharing their dreams musically like us. But more importantly, so many people out there have said, "Hey, I could do a song. I could do," and they work so hard on getting the song, okay, that they don't necessarily get all the elements down yet for performance. They're so worried about getting themselves psyched up enough. People get nervous. People have performance anxiety all over the world. It's a known thing. And overcoming that so that you can share your dreams with everybody who you would like to hear your dreams sometimes takes everything so completely that you never get to the performance aspect. And we've had people come into Filk rooms for decades and say, "Well, they're not very good, are they?" It's like, no, they're starting out. Give them a chance. We are a training ground. We are an accepting community of people who say, "Come on in, we'll accept you at any skill level. We don't care. We want to hear you. We'll encourage you. We'll train you. We'll help you get better, and we'll make you feel comfortable while you're learning your musical chops." And as a result, we have some of the most earnest amateur performers of all time, and we have some of the best band musicians on the planet, all hanging out in the same space, all encouraging each other, all listening to each other, all enjoying each other's work, and all having fun together. And I think that's cool.
Very cool. I love that description, Tom. So we have a few questions that we got before we started this recording. The next one is that I would ask the Humdingers, what's your favorite thing about Filk music?
People keep using the word community, and I think that's one of the most important aspects of Filk. I kind of like to describe Filk as the cosplay of music. I mean, and like,
not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, but like, and Tom said a lot of this, but it's like you've got people who've been doing this for a very long time or have a lot of natural talent, and then you've got people who are brand new or trying something new, and we all mix together, and it's really the most important aspect of Filk is having fun with what you're doing and enjoying what you're doing and being feeling like you're contributing to something. Chuck said, so Chuck, who did the intro video there, plays bass with us a lot, and he said a lot right there that it's about feeling a part of something, because a lot of Filk happens around a circle, just a bunch of people in a room singing songs, and sometimes we'll go down weird rabbit holes and remember when everybody like had their own song to the tune of like Barrett's Privateers.
God, that was one of the worst times ever.
But it happens.
It was so awful.
And you just have to roll with it because it's the mood.
No,
but
I suggest if you ever go to a Filk circle, please, if someone sings a song and you know
their version of Barrett's Privateers,
don't do yours, and then they're gonna do that.
Silly.
It was
no, but really,
I mean, supporting is great, and I love it, but that was.
But being there and being included in that circle of people, no matter how good you are or how new you are, it doesn't matter, because the people are going to invite you in and ask you to stay and ask you to sing more
And probably play along.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason I really got into music when I was young. I started in the SCA, the Society for Creative Anachronism, going to Bardic circles, and it's a version of the Filk scene, just with very specific content related to the SCA and medieval history. And because of but there were the same kinds of people there. In fact, there's a lot of crossover between those subgroups, and a lot of those people encouraged me to keep writing and keep singing and keep
right, the
performing.
same support of anyone, whether you just have a joke to tell or a song you've been working on for 10 years or whatever, everybody's going to support you.
Yeah. And whether you're singing a cappella or backed up with a full band, it's a really good feeling to be welcomed and validated like that.
Well, cool. Well, cool. So, there we go.
May I point out something?
Yeah. Tom. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry that you had the problems with Barrett's Privateers, but one of my best early Filk experiences, honestly, was at the Marcon 86 Filk, which was legendary for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is we ended up doing, I think, a 15-minute version of You Can Sing Anything You Want to Alice's Restaurant. Yeah. I did the rainbow.
Well, I guess the words were
Why
changing
are
in
there
ours
so many
too,
songs about rainbows and what's on the other side? But rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. and for a final, everybody did their version simultaneously. Man, we blew out the walls on that one. That was fun.
So, that leads in a bit to one of the other questions that we had that I'd like Chris in particular, because I know that we've talked about this previously. Did you start playing Filk intentionally, or did you find out that you were already playing it but didn't realize it?
Yeah, with us, it was definitely one of those things where we were just kind of doing it without knowing we were doing it. Because it goes back to my old band, The Manpower, when we just started playing anime conventions because one of our friends that, funny enough, lived in Atlanta but was booking the anime convention in Nashville wanted us to play it because she needed to fill out a full band lineup with no money, which is always a good thing. So we got involved with it there, playing at the anime cons and stuff like that. And then fast forward to Night Sabers, it was a little bit more intentional and a little bit more focal point guided. But even then, I'm not sure I'd heard the term Filk. And then it was down the road where one of our friends pointed out to us, or I think more than one person said, aren't you just basically doing Filk music because you're singing about video games, anime, and comic books, and cats? Cats have been brought up a lot. And we realized, we're definitely doing Filk music without knowing it. We've always said we're more of a nerd pop band or a comedy band, but I think we are those things, but I think we're also Filk as well. I think we're all of those. It's one of those things. That's what I love about Filk, is that it obviously is all encompassing. You can be rock, punk, folk music, hip hop. It doesn't matter as long as there's kind of that unity thing. But it's one of those things where now it's something that, sometimes when we tell people, hey, this is the thing we do, they don't even know what it is sometimes. So it can be very much an educational situation as well, which is really, really cool. But we always just wrote songs about what we knew about. And I think escapism is very important in music. I don't want to listen to a sad song. A guy on stage, oh, my life is awful, I broke my heart. There's a time and place for that, but that's not what I want to do. I want to sing about, candy and cats and rock and roll and everything. And that's what Filk is all about, is having a good time. I've never seen anybody sad. Obviously, some of the songs, they touch on the feels sometimes. I know Mikey Mason, for example, has a few. The Double Clicks have a few, and that's great. And they do a wonderful job with those. But right after that, then they have a funny song again. So I love the comedy and escapism aspect of it. So I don't know. That kind of went to a different direction from the initial question. But yeah, we fell into it like a buffoon, or like the buffoons that we are.
I have to point out something obvious here. It's obvious to me because I've been doing this since 1985. But a big part of the reason that I do funny songs is that, for the most part, right now there's a lot more funny songs in Filk than there used to be because there are more people who are doing them. Okay. Back in the day, it was more maybe 50-50 or even 60-40 serious songs. Okay, I mean, there's a subgenre of filk called os, as in os, and more os. And the most famous songs in that is In the Grim, which was written by Cliff Flint, based on Gordon Dixon's Dorsai series. There's another whole subgenre of Dorsai books out there, but Ian the Grim is about this warrior who, he basically goes around battlefields, stripping the dead. If there's anybody still alive, he'll take them out, and then strip their bodies and everything. And he finds a puppy, nurses the puppy back to health, carries the puppy with him everywhere, and then after one battle, the puppy gets gravely injured, and he has to decide to put the puppy down. Okay, that's how depressing the song can get. This long, detailed thing about whether or not to kill the puppy, and I love the song, but I also like to think that I started. I was a part of the movement that started to rescue Filk from those songs. Because, oh my God, those things can get depressing. And
Yeah.
Not the puppy.
Literally, like an entire verse with him going, 2 verses with him going over whether or not to kill his best friend, the puppy.
Is that why people sing so much about cats now?
Most things are better with dogs,
comedy.
but everything's better with cats. That's what it is.
I won't let Scott do more than one tearjerker in a show, and he always gets mad at me for it because he loves to write them, and they're great songs. But our I guess our fans who actually come to the shows, they like all of the stuff, but some of them get really upset if we do too many serious songs. So I know it's my fault. I try to keep it lighthearted.
Just the other week for Virtual Nastic, I ended up doing a couple different concerts. I did one all funny and one all serious because we want to hear the serious songs, Tom. And okay, great, I'll do Boy and His Frog and everything else. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Tom, I know this is probably going to be an interesting answer, but I really want to know it. What is your most favorite song that you've done?
That is tricky. Not as tricky as you'd think. I'm actually really proud of Rocket Ride. I'm really proud of the Here and Now, which I wrote to basically explain my atheism in a way that my mom could understand and try to reconcile my mom's deep religious feelings with my atheism and say, listen, we are all on the same planet and it all works for everybody. For sheer bad jokes and puns, it's got to be the Ballad of Fenton. Cheap marketing ploy. I like a lot of my songs. I don't think I've written too many clinkers. There's some things that I don't necessarily go back to, but even when I go back to them, that wasn't awful, that kind of thing. The stuff that I like the most tends to end up in my shows a lot, and there's a couple dozen of those that rotate around there. About that, I think I would have to say Rocket Ride is my favorite. I think I did a very good job on that.
It's one of my favorites, so I was really happy to hear that.
I'm glad you like it.
So, for the Humdingers,
Mm-hmm.
do you more often think of a Filk as soon as you've seen something, a film, a show, read a book, or does it take time to kind of process? I know, just a bit of a spoiler for all of y'all that go over to the fan track feeds for our End of the World group sing. There was a song that was made in a very quick time that you'll be hearing from the Humdingers.
Oh yeah.
Well-
I wrote that in a day. Well, I wrote one today actually. I'm gonna take a nap, and my friend said, "No, we're gonna write a song." I was like, "No, but I wanted a nap."
You wrote a parody.
Yeah, I wrote a parody. That's the easy part. Ones that aren't parodies are not so easy. But the themes and the ideas can come very quickly or marinate for a long time.
Yeah,
For instance,
what?
when we went to see the eighth Harry Potter movie,
The seventh Harry
Potter movie. So right after the battle, and then Voldemort's out there.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk
No.
about Zip Me Up.
No. Well, that's
You're
a
talking
different.
about
Okay,
Awkward
so
Hug.
Awkward
Oh my
Hug.
God.
So Voldemort, walks out there and he asks Malfoy to come over and give him a hug, and we looked at each other. We were like, "What the hell?" Like that character. Like, have they read the books? Did the directors read the books? Voldemort would never act like that. So we were like, "Oh, that's it. We got to write a song about that."
Awkward Hug.
So we did, and that came fairly easily.
Yeah, that was because it was pretty much parody.
Then we wrote a song about Harry and Ginny's.
This is Harry Potter again.
Harry Potter. That's where we started in Filk. Their forced romance in the movies, and it was called Shoelace because it was all about her wanting to tie his shoe.
When they were alone on the stairs, and she goes on her knees in front of him and says shoelace. But when we went to see the seventh movie, there's a scene where
playing with your hair.
Oh, sorry.
There's
a scene where Ginny comes out and she's in a dress that's like unzipped to the top of her butt cheeks.
Not even that far, And
I don't know. It was pretty
walks
far.
over to Harry and she turns her back to him. And she goes, "Zip me up, would you?" And we looked to each other and we're like,
yeah, but so did everybody around us.
Everyone looked at us and went, "Yeah, that's your next song." And we're like, "Yeah, I guess
okay,
so."
I guess we got to write that.
And that one took for freaking ever to write. It was very difficult to do. I think it was because of all the pressure.
Yeah.
But
we then
had to do it.
Then the one we just wrote for the group sing this year is about Millie Ways, the restaurant at the end of the universe. And we sort of, we came up with a theme weeks ago. And we sort of sat around on it. And then Amber, you sent out a reminder that these are due.
And we're like, "Oh, we got to write it tomorrow."
So we wrote that in the span of about a few hours.
Yeah,
she cranked out some lyrics.
I cranked out all the lyrics.
All the verses. I wrote a chorus and I gave it a tune.
Yep.
So there. You're a team. Teamwork.
You're muted, Amber.
Thank you. I'm much better about paying attention with others. So I want to actually play another video from where we had asked folks what Filk means to them. This time around, it's actually new to con for this year, the faithful sidekicks who answer it.
I'm Jen.
I'm Eric.
We're the faithful sidekicks. Filk, to us, means community. To me especially, it means people coming together to support and encourage each other while enjoying music, science fiction, fantasy, and fandom in general.
It's about making and sharing music about stuff that we love and hanging out and being together in the process and being able to share the stuff that we love with other people and, community.
It's an overriding theme.
Yeah, I love it.
Can I just say something that might not be obvious to some people? Eric, who was in that, kind of started February album writing month.
Yes.
If you've ever heard of that. He kind of runs that little show.
And another sneak peek, he will actually be doing a panel for us called Learning to Love the Deadline on Saturday that talks all about that and using nano and
we all should watch that.
Yes, I'm really excited. He had actually pitched it and he was like, "I don't know if you'd be interested." I'm like, "Yes, of course I'd be interested."
It's a great idea.
I go through that with every single month with Patreon. It's like I could probably do 10 songs a month if I actually worked at it. But lately, between just miscellaneous, executive dysfunction based on COVID-19 and my own health, which is not wonderful. I mean, I'm fine. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm also not getting up and going a whole lot. Sometimes I wait till the last 2 or 3 days of the month to get a song ready for Patreon, and sometimes it all comes down to the last 12 hours. And it's like, okay, gotta work. Okay, song. Hey, everything's great. Oh wow. Okay, record. arrange the whole thing. Get that all done by midnight. Yes, I have 2 songs in the can. And then the next day, it's like, don't talk to me. I'm not awake. No, go away.
Well,
Well,
Chris,
deadline pressure is a very good thing, but it's definitely also a double-edged sword.
yeah, it really is. There's nothing like a deadline, like, oh, I don't know, Dragon Con, that made me do a lot in the last little
we
bit.
had 2 new songs because of that.
I do have a question for you, Chris. What do you think is the future of Filk?
I think the future is kind of expanding upon what it already is. I mean, obviously, it's the thing that being someone that's still a little bit newer to it, but we obviously have one of the OGs here, like Tom, where it obviously started out with conventions and things of that nature, and a very I think it's a very live, a very in-person genre. That's how I take it. Obviously there are recordings, but people like experience it in person. However, for better or worse, things are the way they are right now. And as a result, I think this kind of will even aid more in the future of Filk being a lot more online, a lot more through, streaming, and a lot through live performances, be it on things like this, like YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or anything like that. I mean, there's entire musicians that have, these huge followings on Twitch, but aren't really known anywhere else. And I mean, they might not even be able to go tour. I don't know, maybe they can, but I think that as a result, Filk is something that really is going to work on that, especially with something like Twitch, because it's a space mostly for video games. Well, what do people that like video games like? They like music about video games. So, they like nerdy stuff, basically. So I think that's the future. I think the future, too, is that it's going to just keep getting, bigger and bigger, because it's one of those things where, I've heard a lot about, even in recent time, people always saying, oh, Weird Al is a big influence to it. Well, of course he is. And he's a huge artist, obviously, as a result. So I think between, it's never going to be one of those things. It's never going to be a headliner at an arena probably doing the genre. But when you have people like Weird Al, or even someone like Tenacious D, I mean, that's more on the comedy side, but it's kind of the same thing. It's 2 guys playing guitars and writing nerdy songs about being superheroes and how they're the greatest band ever. So I think the future is just I think it's more open than ever. And I think when cons do start back, we're going to see even a bigger presence of it, because these people have been building their fandom for themselves through things like Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok even. I don't know. Is there Filk on TikTok? Probably. I don't know what it is, but it's probably there. So I think that the future is just going to keep expanding, and we're going to keep seeing more bands even like Night Sabers getting into it that maybe didn't know we were part of it, but really were part of it the whole time. I mean, I know we've educated a ton of people on it, and I think it's just going to grow from there.
Cool. So I do want to shift a little bit. We talk a lot about the music that y'all all make. I have a question for Tom. Do you have a favorite style of Filk music that you like to listen to?
Ooh, that's tricky. That is actually really tricky. Because there are so many very good performers in so many different styles. And you'd think it wouldn't be, okay? I mean, the root of Filk is folk, and a lot of people effectively do folk or at best folk pop. But on the other hand, Wreck the System went to OVFF, the Ohio Valley Folk Fest, a couple of years. They're going to be performing Saturday night, and came in straight up hardcore hip hop, blew out the walls. Everybody was just amazed. It was wonderful. Mikey Mason does a lot of folk rock. I do a lot of folk rock. I tried doing as many different musical styles as I can just for fun. The band Toy Boat, and their subgroup Random Fractions, where they haven't got all 5 members, but they got 2 or 3. They do pretty much straight up rock. I don't know that there's a favorite style that I have to listen to, because there's everybody does what they want to. Most of them do something folkish or folk rockish these days. But once you've heard some of the groups like that, once you've heard Ukla the Mock doing doing guitar rock with on riffs on supervillains, okay. They have several albums that are entirely devoted to comic books. So there's there is no favorite genre as far as I'm concerned. They're all equally enjoyable. I can sit down and listen to Mark Gunn with the auto harp, and Heather Dale with her keyboard, and Alexander James Adams with his lute, and Ukla with the full rock band, and Toy Boat with a different rock band, and the Humdingers with a different rock band. It all works out.
Very cool. Just to let everybody watching in the streams, if you have a question for any of us, feel free to go ahead and throw it in the comments, and we will, address it. At the moment, I don't actually have any other questions in the queue. But I did have something kind of come up as we were talking. We've got dogs dying, and so therefore cats have taken over Filk. What other animal do you think is going to be the next thing that's going to run through Filk like cats have in the last few years?
Thestrals.
Iguanas. Because that's an easy word to rhyme with for sure.
Robot
Echidna,
ants,
that's
robot ants, Steven, little robot ants.
Niffler. Well, we've already done a Niffler song. We need some more Niffler songs.
I had a shout out so that kids could learn the sounds of various ancillary science fiction and fantasy beasts.
All right. Well, I think I am going to play another video of what Filk means to me. For those of y'all who have been with the track over the last few years, this face may be a little bit familiar. And I was so excited to say that she was coming back as my second this year. But of course, DragonCon went virtual, so she recorded this out in the wilds of New Mexico. So here is Pat Var, my second.
Yay!
So I've been asked to talk about what Filk means to me. I was brought up on a lot of traditional Irish folk music, Broadway show tunes, Gilbert and Sullivan, Star Trek, Lost in Space, Outer Limits, Addams Family, etc. So when I first went to a convention back in the 70s and discovered Filk, it was like coming home. And over the years, I've listened on a lot of Filk tracks. I've worked a lot of Filk tracks. I've sang now and again on the Filk tracks. And as Filk has grown up and expanded, there's always been room for us getting older faces, and also, most importantly, for lots of new faces. So we get a real treat in that we're able to see so many up and coming people, who are just immensely talented and have taken this subgenre way beyond anything I could have ever imagined. It encompasses a wide variety of music and a lot of different performance styles. But if you love music, it's unlikely you won't find something that you really like. I'm so grateful for all of my Filk friends. I don't sometimes get to see them very often, but I know that very shortly after the usual catching up on everything about each other's lives that we've missed, that we're just going to fall back into it and just be the big, great Filk family that we've become. So that's just a short bit about what Filk means to me. Thank you.
Yay, Pat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, we've actually got a question for Tom that came in from Facebook. Eric Coleman asked Tom, could you talk a bit about Sutton's Law?
Sutton's Law. No, I probably has something to do with drinking. No, I know that he's referring to Bill Sutton, who's a very, very famous filker from Indiana. No, wait, Georgia. No, wait, Indiana. I'm not sure exactly which. But I gotta go look this up, Eric. I'm trying to prompt Eric to remind us in comments so that I actually know what he's talking about. I don't know about Sutton's Law. I know about Hayes disease, which is a different thing.
Well, actually, for those folks who don't know Hayes disease, I would love to get your explanation because, I mean, I grew up with it, so it's kind of, ingrained into my head, but I absolutely adore the description.
There is a very famous filker, one of the best of us, Frank Hayes, programmer, smart man. Used to be Chicago area, now is West Coast. He has a peculiar condition. He forgets the words to his own songs, even when he's looking at them. It's just suddenly something stops and he can't spit out the words. I actually wrote a song about Dem Frank Hayes blues and tried to describe the whole thing at one point, introducing the song, and actually legitimately forgot the words of the song as soon as it started, which turned out to be funnier than the song by any factor you can imagine. But and Frank is great for that. I mean, he's the guy who, among other things, wrote "Never Set the Cat on Fire," wrote "When I Was a Boy," "Don't Ask," which is the Dorsey counting song that when people ask him what's the title, he says "Don't Ask." He reduced the epic child ballad Matty Groves to a talking blues. He's a silly person, but just I've seen it in action so many times where he'll be looking at his own words and blank. And it got called Hayes disease because Bill Roper was doing a rebuttal to another of Cliff's songs, a big old pun fest called Unreality Warp. Bill was doing a reply to this, and he messed up on the lyrics and said Hayes disease, and that caught on.
Thank you.
Did Eric say anything to remind us what Sutton's Law is?
I
Yeah,
haven't
he
seen
said.
anything.
Where was it?
He
Not
based
here.
it's what you mentioned earlier that you attributed to Juanita Colson about
Filk is what happens in a Filk circle.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, the reason for this is because people do whatever they want to do, and not everybody necessarily feels like singing about the far future or dragon slaying that night. Sometimes we get
Harry Potter,
sing whatever. And that's that's just basic stuff. I mean, remember that the absolute shortest Filk song of all time, okay, the shortest, the briefest, is "The Hills Are Alive," and everything goes from there.
Well,
we like doing TV theme songs. We like doing little bits of classical music. We have occasional Irish jams break out. There's nothing that says a Filk song or a Filk circle has to be devoted to any specific thing unless you're doing a theme Filk. In which case it's kind of gauche to do cat songs in the middle of a spacefaring thing, unless you got a spacefaring cat.
There is one out there. I know there is a folk song out there.
Oh, absolutely. God, Mark's got to have written 7 of them by the end of this weekend.
Well, thinking of Filk circles, and I want to actually get all 3 of your answers, but let's start with the Humdingers. What's your favorite format of a circle? A bardic, a jump in, pick, pass, play, chaos?
No, that is not a favorite.
Chaos is my least favorite. I'm sort of torn between a pick, pass, or play format or a sort of a juried list kind of thing. Oftentimes there'll be like if you're interested in performing, let the host know, and they keep a list of people who are interested in performing, and the host sort of calls on people who says, oh, I think this person should be next and this person should be next, kind of thing. It still gives everybody a chance to perform. It lets the host control the flow of things a little bit better than, who's the loudest person to jump up or who has the most self-confidence that evening to get up, kind of thing. Pick, pass, or play is I often like if you've got a really good group of performers. Sometimes it puts people on the spot who would rather not be put on the spot.
I disagree. I think it gives them a chance to pass that time.
Well, and
I like pit pass
I've
or
seen
play
both.
because when you have a circle that has a lot of audience members who don't want to participate, then they don't feel like they have to do anything.
Yeah.
And it'll be you're performing, you guys all skip, okay, then you're performing. And every now and then one of those skip people will say, oh, I can do it now, and they'll jump in. But
I've run a variation on the pick, pass, or play I call the wandering turn. And it's basically pick, pass, or play, but we don't like, okay, this person and now that person and that. You just sort of, okay, over here, anybody, okay, over here, and you just keep it going easily so that nobody really feels put on the spot.
Chris, what about you?
So as the person here who's the most new to the Filk scene and has been to literally one Filk circle, and it was the online one. but for years, here's the weird part about it, though, like a little bit of backstory on that. Before I knew a lot about this, and before we played it last year even, I knew about it roughly. Like in my mind, it was just like basically like kind of this like open mic thing that happened late at night, and I always wanted to do it. So I always thought it seemed cool. And even last year we would have done it, but we famously booked ourselves for like 15 events last Dragon Con, and we're like dead by the end of the night every night. But with that being said, I'm going to throw a wrench in and say my favorite version of it is the group sing type thing that I hear there's one happening at midnight on Saturday on the fan channel here on Dragon Con. But no, I thought that was the coolest event last year when we got to go to that, because we got to see, everybody. Because we were so busy, we didn't get to go to a lot of the shows, and that was really awful. And that was kind of the nice thing about this virtual event. We've got to watch everyone's shows. And but going to that was really cool because it was such a great sampler. And like one of our friends came with us that was just helping us out throughout the weekend. She said that was one of the best events she had been to all weekend. She said she'll go to that every time, regardless if we're playing or not, because it was just a good way to see, a dozen people, in an hour. And it's really great because, with Dragon Con, obviously, like if you really like one of those people, they've probably got another show, be it Saturday or Sunday or something. So I'm going to say my favorite version of the circle is the group sing, even though it's kind of not a circle. But, circles are made to be drawn incorrectly. So there you go.
That works. I like the group sings too. They're fun.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, what about you?
I don't really have a... Well, it's not true. Okay, number one, I'm used to Midwest chaos, okay, where whoever's sitting around throws in a song, whatever seems to follow, or whatever seems to break the mood and go in a different direction. We all tend to be pretty polite about that. If nothing else, somebody was raised their hand and maybe didn't get noticed by the people up front, and somebody else will say, hey, filter up. Okay, fine, we're good. Poker chips can be okay. As a matter of fact, they're wonderfully self-regulating because if you have a Filk hog, they tend to use up their chips early and then they can't get back in. Trash. I have unfortunately been in past pick or play circles where it took 2 hours to get around the room because they decided that everybody in the audience went as well. Okay, so you have to be careful on how those are moderated. If you're going to get one song in 4 hours, what is the point? If you're not enjoying all the songs necessarily, and that's a big thing. It's not that everybody is bad or tedious. It's just that these things usually happen very late at night, and I'm old. I just can't stay up that late. And it gets worse in some areas where, because they're listening and paying attention to everybody, when it comes around to their turn, that's when they start to say, okay, what can I sing? And they start going through the milk crate of songbooks.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And you can feel your hair lengthening as they're going through this. So I like chaos, because we tend to have followers like, oh, I got one for after that, and we get right into it, and the pace is often very, very good, and when it really gets going, it can be one of the most entertaining things ever. So I tend to like that. But
If I could interject one more thing, because Tom raises a really interesting point. One of my, I'll call it a frustration for lack of a better term. I enjoy Filk circles. I'm not going to say I don't, but oftentimes my frustration with many of them is when they get too big, you get one turn in 90 minutes to do something. And I'm the kind of performer, when I get going, it's hard to turn me off. I want to keep going. It's like, oh, I got a chance. I can sing now. Yeah. And I do my 3.5 minute song, and then I'm done. And it's like
that's
for an hour and a half. And it's like, oh, I'm enjoying these other performances, but I really
want to keep performing.
Yeah.
That's
sometimes
why we
it takes
7 different rooms at OVFF, man.
Yeah. It's one of the things that, I kind of wish that we could kind of subdivide, because sometimes, like Saturday nights, it can get really big for a circle, and I really love the fact that it can get really big. That's a great problem to have, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we back in 2012, 2 rocket scientists from Huntsville came in and asked to borrow a guitar, and now they're foot-pound fours. But they had never heard of Filk. They were just wandering around in the middle of the night, and ended up coming into an open Filk when we were still down in the sub-basement of the Hyatt in Baker. I didn't realize it was 2012 until I posted a memory, and Dave's like, that was my first Dragon Con.
Nice.
Is there any reason, by the way, that we can't just pull one of the room dividers across for the open?
Hotel. We can't, because of the hotel.
Is it a matter of a union thing? Could we ask them to do it?
It would be far too legally expensive. I just work here, man.
So can I say something about themed circles?
Sure.
So we're still kind of new to the Filk scene, because we were, back on that earlier question, we were doing it without knowing we were doing it, and then we got brought in as inter-Filk guests, because they, actually it was the Suttons who brought us in, I think, to an actual Filk convention. They said, "You guys are Filk." We were like, "We are? Okay," and I mean, we were doing it in the SCA. But
at Con Carolinas as part of the Filk track for several years,
right? But when we first started, we didn't really understand, and then when we went to OVFF for the first time, we didn't really understand the whole themed circles thing, and we've done the gauche faux pas a few times, totally by accident, by coming into a themed circle, which we didn't realize was a themed circle, and we'd sing a song, and then someone would always go, "And now can we get back on the theme?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, we didn't know, we didn't understand how it worked." Everyone else was like, "Well, we all know, we've been doing it forever," but we were new, we didn't know,
we didn't see the sign on the door.
Well, we didn't understand, I think, I don't know but so I feel bad about that, and I apologize that for gauching anybody's themed circle. That wasn't on purpose, but there, that's all. I just need to get that off my chest.
Well, and part of that was why we looked at the group sings with our performers on the track, is that you can get that theme Filk kind of feel, but then we just keep our open Filks open, because you never really know who's going to come in and what song or story that they want to tell. So I want to make sure that everybody is as free to experience, whether they just want to stay, watching an open Filk, or whether they want to participate. But
may I suggest a theme for a future Dragon Con?
Sure.
We've done this a couple times at OVFF, and it worked out very, very well, especially the first time. We did basically a rock and roll jam because there were several of us, Steve McDonald, myself, the members of Lukla, a couple of people in Toy Boat, that really wanted to do some old rock and roll covers. Okay,
Cool.
and we had one that went on. It was scheduled for 2 hours. It went over because we were having such a blast doing old Eagles songs. We did half the soundtrack of the Rocky Horror Show. We just every freaking thing, and not a note of Filk in sight. And I think that would be a blast, especially especially here, like Mark Gunn on the auto harp doing some rock and roll covers. Because it's been a long time since he did. It's been a long time since the 2009 sound check at Gen Con where he did Freebird on the auto harp.
Oh no, I have actually heard that.
Standing
So we've got about 10 minutes left. I do want to do another question that I would love to have all three of your answers. If you had to give one piece of advice to new Filkers, what would it be? And since you're up in my top right, Humdingers, you want to go first?
Sure. And also there's one on the Facebook that we need to make sure we get to before I just saw that.
Maybe.
Okay.
One piece of advice. Invite yourself to things.
Yes.
That's
So we got started playing conventions because I run a little vendor booth, and we would talk to the conventions and say, hey, we're going to be there selling. We've bought a table. You're not, we're not putting any, you're not losing any money on us. Can we play a show?
Have 30
Because
minutes
we're
to play a
there
show?
already,
We're going to be there.
Yeah.
Do some programming for you. And we did that for about a couple of years, really. And then
was it only a couple of years? It feels like we're still doing that sometimes.
No, mostly.
Yeah, we do get invited occasionally.
Yeah, but it's like invite yourself. Don't wait to be invited to a convention. That takes years of work, and you need to build a following, and you need to build a fan
and sometimes
base.
you have to luck out with the right person hearing you in the right time and place.
I think we got into Dragon Con because
Pat saw us,
heard us at OVFF.
Yeah.
We're like, Dragon Con. That sounds good.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to invite yourself to things, and I mean, go to things as a paid attendee. We go to a bunch of Filk conventions now. We pay to go because we love being part of the community, and we like a chance to do some ballroom dancing at Gefilk in January.
What about you, Chris?
It's funny because I would almost want to piggyback off of literally what they just said. It's just like, it's so important to put yourself out there and just try to do things and go to things and, stop being scared to market yourself. You are a product, at the end of the day. Be it through social media or through in person or anything else. Because like in the case of Dragon Con, I mean, I had went as an attendee for years and always wanted to play. And it was funny because it was last year would have been 2019. So 2018 was the year I really wanted to look into trying to figure out how to play. I was like, we can play this. And that's where I did learn about the Filk track through seeing bands like the Double Clicks and funny enough, meeting the guys in Foot Pound Force, which we eventually met down the road at the Huntsville Pop Expo, I think, when we were playing with Cybertronic Spree with them there. And they had said, the Filk is the way in because it's a little bit, it's a little bit lower ceiling of entry, so to speak, I suppose, but still can be pretty hard at the same time. But I think it's very important to do that. And to add to that, I think what's important is on top of that, once you put yourself out there and once you're starting to get yourself just a little bit, is to bring your friends with you because we want to bring this scene and expand it. In the case of us, I have fought tooth and nail with Regdar and the Fighters to try to approach Dragon Con. And of course they did this year, and they're going to be featured on the new artist showcase. Fingers crossed we can get them at a future convention. And they play this like glitchy nerd punk, weird nerd stuff where there's a DDR pad with all the guitar samples on it and all this really cool stuff. But where that's going is, once you're there, bring your friends with you, bring your family, bring your enemies, because we all have something to offer and you can just expand from there. And don't be afraid to ask other people to help you out with things, because you know, you can get a lot further with cool free favors for other people than money a lot of the times, in all honesty. And I think that that's something that, you know, when you're working on a budget, especially, I definitely think is good. You know, put yourself out there. Say, hey, I'll record a guitar part for you if you sing on this track, or maybe I'll sing on this track if you play a guitar part for me. I think it's all about building this like network of people, and everybody helps everybody, and then everybody gets bigger and more successful as a result. And it's awesome. Yeah.
You're muted again, Amber.
Yep.
What about you, Tom? Anything else?
Yeah. Both of their advice is just great. For the sake of promotion, once you actually get yourself situated in Filk, and there's no doubt that that you can, you know, you can end up climbing up the ladder very, very fast. I'm thinking of people like Lauren Cox, Steve McDonald, Ukla Bamat, who just, you know, basically appeared one day, and everybody said, "Friend, welcome." You know, the Humdingers. First time the Humdingers came to OVFF, everybody basically adopted them right off the bat. But I'm going to speak to something a little more personal. Keep at it. A lot of times, the people who are getting into Filk are exactly like artists who are just starting out and say, "I want to draw," and writers who say, I want to be a novelist." It's like they start out and they're untrained. Sometimes they have a natural knack for storytelling, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have a natural knack for composition and layout of the human body, and some of them don't. In Filk, we have a lot of people who don't have any idea of how to do something musically. And one of the best things about Filk is that it is a friendly training ground. Okay, it's literally just like learning socializing in high school, except that we won't, you know, we won't give you wedgies and shove you into your locker. The idea of Filk as a community is to welcome people into it, and that means we welcome a lot of people who, frankly, don't have the skills. They don't know how to sing. They don't know how to play an instrument, and they're learning. And so what we do is we give them respect, we give them attention, we give them applause, we give them critical advice. We try to be as constructive as possible. We try to be as friendly as possible, because we don't want to chase anybody away. No, it's not a matter of, oh my God, what's this nerd doing here? You know, what that nerd is doing there is the same thing that I was doing there 20 years ago. So if you get into a Filk circle and you're not happy with it, if you're not happy with the way you sound vocally, if you're not happy with your instrumentation, if you think your songs all sound the same, you know, you're using generic thing. I mean, you know, if you've got Emily Dickinson syndrome and everything can be sung to the Yellow Rose of Texas or whatever it might be, keep at it and keep expanding yourself, because it will come. Okay, it may take a while, but with effort, it's like anything else. If you do it enough times, you will get better at it, and that's what we want. Okay, bluntly, I suck. I was awful. I was dreadful. I was doing comedy to keep people from hurting me. I figured if they were laughing, they wouldn't be able to chase me. And 3 years after I got into Filk, I had my first guest of honorship. And you know, 3 years after that, I had my first album. So this takes time.
Also, you don't suck.
Thank you, but trust me, okay. I was pretty awful back in the day. I got better. I had, you know, it was get better or stop. So, and that's the thing. Everybody here, you can hear improvements in just about everybody in little ways from con to con. Okay, especially the people who've only been into it for a couple of years, because they're still searching for that. They're still searching for their voice. They're still searching for an audience. They're still searching for exactly what they're doing.
We change huge amounts year to year, and we've been doing it for a while, and noticeably different every time. What, Scott?
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, I've grown tremendously as a musician in the last 10 years. just through performing more and performing more of a rock act than
Yeah,
just
different than
singing around a campfire.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
totally
absolutely.
different
And
way of
I've heard
singing.
you get better every year.
Yeah. Oh.
Thank you.
There are some people who have gotten to a level and they're happy at that level, and that's great. Okay, that's what they want to do, and they're good at it. But the rest of us, and especially the beginners who are intimidated, when Heather Dale gets on stage and it's all professionalism all the time, but it's such an easygoing professionalism. When the Humdingers come on, when Andrew and Mark come on, and their banter is so easygoing. They honed that easygoing banter over 20 years.
Us too.
I mean, I really just learned all my banter from Paul Stanley.
I used to. There's a guy named oh boy, God, it's been so long. Peter Grubbs. I was introduced to Peter Grubbs, I think, back in 1991. We didn't know each other. We said, "Hey, how you doing?" We got on stage and we had a chemistry that was unbelievable, and it manifested in insult comedy back and forth for every concert that we did together for the next 10 years. People thought that we had hated each other since childhood.
We do a lot of that with Mikey Mason, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah. I was going to say, it's funny. Mikey and I don't get into the insults too much, but I have seen that he does with other people. It's like, okay.
The very first year, the very first year that Mikey came to Dragon Con, after going through his package that he had sent over to Dragon Con for the Performer app, we were like, we need to put him and Tom on the same stage. We even made a heavyweight belt out of, with little Filk symbols and musical notes that whoever won it got the head. Yes. All right, y'all.
That was one of my favorite sets of all time.
That was a great set.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Mikey is awesome, and we were just going back and forth. It was comfortable, it was friendly, it was fun, and we got to hear stuff. Each of us do things that we normally don't do in concerts. So that was. Yeah. I was like, man, you are good.
Well, we are over time, so I am going to end it there. I want to give a big, huge thanks to Scott and Kirsten, the Blibbering Humdingers, Chris Saber from Night Sabers, and the fastest filker in the world, Tom Smith. Thank y'all so much for coming out and chatting with us about what Filk is. This will be rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. On the same channels. So, and then after that, we've got Geeky Meditations with Alyssa Yeager from Rhiannon's Lark. I hope to see y'all there, and thank y'all again.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Nanu.
Thank y'all for coming out and watching our rebroadcast of What is Filk with Tom Smith, the Blibbering Humdingers, and Night Sabers. Coming up next at 2:30 Eastern will be Geeky Meditations with Alyssa Yeager from Rhiannon's Lark. I'll see y'all then.